Aloha, everyone. I'm Karen Lealoha Ka'anehe Carroll, and I'm very honored to be here tonight to share the Hawaiian values with you. I'd like to begin with a short poem by the great sage Dear Abby. It is called The Paradox of Our Times. The paradox of our times is that we have taller buildings but shorter tempers, wider freeways but narrower viewpoints. We buy more but enjoy it less, have bigger houses and smaller families, more conveniences but less time. We have more advanced degrees but less common sense, more knowledge but less good judgment, more medicine, but less wellness. We have multiplied our possessions, but reduced our values. We have higher incomes, but lower morals. We have been all the way to the moon and back, but have trouble crossing the street to meet a new neighbor. We've cleaned up the air, but polluted the soul, split the atom, but not our prejudices. We talk too much, love too seldom, and hate too often. These are times of steep profits and shallow relationships. More leisure, but less fun. 2 incomes and more divorce. It is a time when there is much in the show window and nothing in the stockroom. A time when technology can bring a letter to you in seconds, and you can choose either to make a difference or just hit delete. I would like to share these Hawaiian values with you, which are universal core values. The first Hawaiian value are the words ke alaho. Ke alaho means a new perspective. There was a wise old Chinese woman, and she had 2 great big pots that she carried on the ends of a pole around the back of her neck. And every day she would go down to the stream and she would fill these pots with water. Well, one pot was perfect in every way, and the second pot had a crack in it. Well, every day when she completed the long walk from the stream back again to the house, the pot that had a crack in it only brought back a half of a pot of water. Well, the pot that was perfect in every way was so proud of his accomplishments, and the poor pot that had the crack in it was so sad and felt so frustrated that he was not able to do all of the things he was designed and created to do. So one day he spoke to the woman at the side of the river, and he said to her, I feel so bad. I don't know what to do because I cannot offer a full measure of water. Well, the wise old Chinese woman said to this pot, have you noticed that along the pathway, on your side of the pathway, there are beautiful flowers that are growing there? She said, I recognize your flaw. And so I decided to plant seeds, flower seeds, on your side of the pathway. Every day when we go home, you water the flowers, and it is because of you that we have beautiful flowers to grace our tables. That made the pot feel so good. Many times we have flaws. Each one of us have flaws. But we need to embrace that part of ourself that is not perfect. And also to realize that other people have flaws and we need to see the positive in them. Turn your scars into stars. Don't let these faults be a stumbling block Rather, let it be a stepping stone. There may be people who you can understand more fully because you've experienced the same things that they have. Ke aloho means a new perspective. Our next Hawaiian value is a word, olu olu. Olu olu means caring. There was a little girl named Lindsay who was 5 years old, and she was a premature baby. She spent most of her young life in the hospital, and the nurses there were wonderful to Lindsay. They loved her so much. But there was one nurse by the name of Lori, and Lori really took a liking to Lindsay. And every day when she was at work, she would bring coloring books and spend her time coloring with Lindsay. She would read to her, and Lori went far above and beyond the call of duty. Well, one day, when Lori came to work, Lindsay was waiting for her, and she was so excited. And she said to Lori, "Lori, when I grow up, I want to be what you are." Well, Lori was very happy. She said, "Lindsay, you will make a wonderful nurse one day." Well, Lindsay shook her head. "No," she said, "no, not a nurse." She said, "When I grow up, I want to be an angel." Do you know that you are an angel in the lives of other people? You may not even know that you're an angel, or you may not even look like an angel, but there are those who wait for you, for your smile, for your gentle touch, for your listening ear, and to them you are an angel. The word is olu olu, which means caring. Our next Hawaiian value is the word akamai, and it means resourceful. Many times we think akamai as being smart, but it is also resourceful. There was an elderly gentleman, and he went into a car dealership, and he bought himself a bright red hot Corvette convertible. Well, he drove this Corvette out of the parking lot, and he headed for the open road. Well, as he was driving, he put the pedal to the metal, and soon he was going 100 miles an hour. Well, soon he saw some flashing blue lights behind him, and he pulled over. Well, it was a highway patrolman, and he was not amused by this elderly gentleman on this little speeding spree that he was on. And he said to this man, "Sir, I'm just getting off of my shift. I'm on my way home. If you can tell me one reason that I have not heard before why you are traveling at such a high speed, I will let you go." Well, the elderly gentleman thought about that for a while, and he looked at the officer and he said, "Officer, I have to tell you something. Years ago, my wife ran off with a highway patrolman. I thought you were bringing her back." The highway patrolman said, "Have a nice day, sir." Akamai is resourceful. Our next Hawaiian value are the words aloha ke kahi I ke kahi, and this means looking after and caring for one another. Many, many years ago, I owned a farm in Waimanalo. It was a white ginger farm on the back roads of Waimanalo. And the roads at that time were very rough, and there were irrigation ditches on both sides of the road. There was no fence to keep you from falling in if your car, ran off the road. Well, I wanted to tell you that I felt so blessed in my life because I've been blessed with so much. So one day I had this conversation with Keakua, with God, and I said, you know what? Thank you for all that you've done for me. If there's anything that I can do for you, just speak to my heart and ask, and it is yours. Well, on this particular night, I had an errand to run. I drove an old Volkswagen van during those days to haul 6 kids around and jabong that was on our tree and white gingers. And late at night, I set out with my Volkswagen van, went down this very, very dark road, and there were no street lights. And as I turned a corner, my headlight shone on a man who was walking in the direction that I was coming from. He was all alone, walking in the darkness. And just before I reached him, I locked my door, and I continued on. And it was then that I heard a voice that spoke to my heart. And the voice said, "Stop the car, turn around, and pick him up." And I said, "No way." So I kept on driving, and then I heard it again. This time it was more insistent. And the voice said, "Stop the car, turn around, and pick him up." And again I said, "I'm not going to do that. I don't know who this guy is." The third time I heard the voice. It said, "You told me to let you know when I need your help, and I need your help now. Stop the car, turn around, and pick him up." And I said, "All right." So I turned my van around. I figured when I reached this man, I'd say, "Do you need a ride?" He'll say, "No, thank you." And I'd say, "Okay." And I would be on my way. Well, there he was, walking in the darkness. And I pulled up next to him and rolled the window down. And I said, "Would you like a ride?" And he said, "Why, yes, thank you." Oh, so I unlocked the door. I don't usually do this, but I had heard this voice so clearly. And he hopped into the passenger side. And as we drove off, he said, "I never thought anyone would give me a ride this late at night, especially not a woman." And so as we drove along, he told me, he said, "Weren't you going in the opposite direction?" I said, "Yes, I was." And he told me his story. He had a DUI, and he couldn't drive his car any longer. And so he had to catch the bus to go to work. And that particular night, he was so exhausted, he fell asleep on the bus, missed his bus stop, had to do the whole circle and come all the way back around. And when he got back, he didn't want to wake up his wife and children because it was so late. So he figured, it's 1.5 miles. I'll just walk it and get home. Well, he hadn't figured on there being no moon that night. And with no street lights and no moon, it was pitch black. And he realized his mistake. As he walked along, he could not even see his hand in front of his eyes. And he didn't even know which direction he was walking in when he remembered the irrigation ditches. And he thought, "Oh my goodness, if I fall into this ditch, they're going to find me tomorrow morning." So as he walked, he prayed, and he asked God to send someone to help him. And guess who God sent? A very unwilling helper. When I heard this, my heart was really touched, and as I continued driving him home, I discovered that he was my next door neighbor. Many times you don't get to meet the person next door because there's a lot of land in between. He was my next door neighbor. God does not ask for your ability or your inability, only your availability. We are our brother's keeper. Aloha ke kahi I ke kahi, looking after and caring for one another. Our next Hawaiian value is the word ha'a ha'a. Ha'a ha'a means humility. And I would like to read you a poem that is titled The Cookie Thief. A woman was waiting at an airport one night with several long hours before her flight. She hunted for a book in the airport shop, bought a bag of cookies, and found a place to drop. She was engrossed in her book, but happened to see that the man beside her, as bold as could be, grabbed a cookie or two from the bag between, which she tried to ignore to avoid a scene. She read, munched cookies, and watched the clock as a gutsy cookie thief diminished her stock. She was getting more irritated as the minutes ticked by, thinking, if I wasn't so nice, I'd blacken his eye. With each cookie she took, he took one too. When only one was left, she wondered what he would do. With a smile on his face and a nervous laugh, he took the last cookie and broke it in half. He offered her half as he ate the other. She snatched it from him and thought, oh, brother, this guy has some nerve, and he's also rude. Why, he didn't even show any gratitude. She'd never known when she'd been so galled, and sighed with relief when her flight was called. She gathered her belongings and headed for the gate, refusing to look back at the thieving ingrate. She boarded the plane, then sank in her seat and sought out her book, which was almost complete. As she reached in her bag, she gasped with surprise. There was her bag of cookies in front of her eyes. If mine are here, she moaned with despair, then the others were his, and he tried to share. Too late to apologize, she realized with grief that she was the rude one, the ingrate, the thief. You know, many times we feel we are so right. In fact, we know we're right, we're positive, and then we're proven wrong. And we have to say, I'm sorry. It takes humility to say, I'm sorry. Not that I'm sorry like, sorry, that doesn't mean anything. But the I'm sorry that comes from the heart, where you risk being rejected. In the Hawaiian culture, one who did not accept an apology held the heavier burden, and that could also make him sick. Humility is ha'a ha'a. Our last Hawaiian value is the word ohana. Ohana means family. This is a story about a young boy named Kenji. Kenji came from a fairly well-to-do family. And Kenji had a problem because he felt that his family loved his younger sister much more than him. The reason for this was that every day his sister got to ride the family car to go to school, and poor Kenji had to ride the public bus. Well, Kenji thought he was so much better than everyone else on the bus. All of the kids from the public school that didn't have as much money as him or as nice clothes as him, and all of the workers with their little bagged lunches, he just looked down his nose at everyone. Well, one of the things that happened every day when he rode the bus was that at one particular bus stop, there was a middle-aged Japanese woman who would get onto the bus. She was crippled and she leaned heavily on a bamboo umbrella, which she used as a cane. And it drove him crazy how long it took her to struggle up the stairs of the bus. But what drove him even more crazy was the fact that whenever she passed where he was sitting, she would pause and she would smile at Kenji, and this enraged him even more. Well, the boys in Kalihi Valley, they knew that Kenji was a punk. And so they decided one day that they were going to pay him back. So payback time was going to be the next day. They decided that when he got off the bus, they would get off the bus too. And they were going to beat the living daylights out of Kenji and teach him a lesson. Well, Kenji caught wind of this, and that night when he went home, he begged his father, "Please, please, let me ride the car to come home today." And his father said, "Absolutely not." Well, that day when Kenji got off the bus, sure enough, all of the other bad boys got off the bus with him, and from behind, one of them pushed Kenji, and Kenji fell into the dirt. All of his nice clothes got all dirty, and his books were laying on the ground. And the biggest boy came towards Kenji, and his fists were ready to punch Kenji's lights out, when suddenly a bamboo umbrella came down hard on the head of one of the boys. Boom! And it was pushed into the stomach of another boy. It was a woman on the bus. She let out a blood-curdling scream, and they scattered like leaves in the wind. Well, Kenji was in shock. He didn't even know what to say. And without a word, the woman turned, struggled back up the stairs of the bus, and the doors closed, and the bus drove away. From that day on, Kenji had a new respect for this woman and for the other people on the bus. And he started writing stories about what he felt they must be. He felt she must surely be the daughter of a brave samurai warrior because she was so brave. And this led Kenji to his life's work, which was journalism. Years later, when he went to the University of Hawaii, his route changed and he didn't see the woman anymore. And years later, his parents passed away and left some surprising news in a safety deposit box. There in the box was a letter written to his parents in beautiful penmanship from a woman who had come to Hawaii from Japan. She gave them her most prized possession, which was her son, because she could not raise him since she was crippled. Her only wish for him was that he would ride the bus to school every day to teach him humility, and so that she could watch him grow up. Ohana is very important in Hawaii. Whether you are related by blood or whether you are related as a soul family, Ohana is important to help one another, help each other along the way. Families are something special. There is a saying that says, "Treat your family like guests and treat your guests like family." Ohana is family. I would like to thank you so much for tuning in to listen to our Hawaiian Values. It has been my pleasure and my honor to be here tonight. Aloha, and thank you so much.